best bites forever.
Hey everyone, it's Chef Alicia, and today I'm going to show you how to make goat cheese tartlets with fig compote. These make a great appetizer, everyone. So let's get started here with 1.5 cups of AP flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And I just am going to pulse them a couple times in my food processor to combine all those ingredients well. The next thing that I'm going to add is 10 tablespoons of butter. And you can see I put it in there already chopped up. That just helps with the blending a little bit. And then I'm going to, once again, pulse in my food processor until I have this texture. So you're looking for little crumbs, kind of cornmeal with little chunks in it. Next, I'm adding some water. I put in about 3 tablespoons, and then I'm going to pulse it and see what it looks like and decide if I need more water or not. So I have water in a 1/4 cup measure. I'll let you know what we use here. But as you can see, it didn't come together, which is what I'm looking for, so I just put that last tablespoon in. And once again, I'm going to pulse it in my food processor. And what I'm looking for is I want it to come together into a ball. So if you're looking at my food processor right now, you will see that a ball is starting to form. So now I know that I have the perfect amount of liquid inside of my dough. Ta-da! There it was. Okay, so now I'm going to lightly flour my countertop, and we're going to make the shells for our tartlets. So let's start off by dividing our dough into 4 pieces. Move 3 of those pieces out of the way and just kind of start squishing your first one that you're going to work with. Now this dough is easier to work with if you put it in the fridge for about an hour before you start working. I didn't do that today in this video because I happen to be in a hurry to get these done. So anyway, play with your food a little bit, just like when you were little and you played with Play-Doh, and make a little dough snake out of it. Once you have your dough snake, you're going to cut him in half, and then each of those halves into thirds. So you want to have a total of 6 pieces. You're going to have 6 pieces for each of your 4 that you cut a minute ago, which is going to give you 24. So if you're using a mini muffin pan, which is what I'm using, that's going to give you the perfect amount of tartlets. So roll it into a ball, and then you don't need a rolling pin here. You can just push down on it. Just try to be as even as you can. It's really not that difficult after your first try. And see, I got pretty much a perfect circle, and then I'm just going to scrape him up with my bench scraper, and then I'm going to move him over here to my mini muffin pan, which is really great. You can use separate tartlet shells if you would like to, but this is a bit easier and a bit faster, so this is what I'm going to do today. So put your little piece of dough in there and kind of make his sides pretty, and then also it's very important for you to kind of push down on the sides and also push down on the bottom. If you skip this step, then you can end up with little air pockets, and then your filling you won't have as much filling, I guess is what it comes down to, because you'll get little bubbles and stuff. So once you do that 24 times, go ahead and dock each of your tartlet shells. So that is a fancy way of telling you to poke some holes in them so that they don't poof up in the oven. And then we're going to bake these for 10 minutes at 350 degrees and let them cool. Next, let's make our compote. So I have 12 ounces of fresh figs here, and I'm just going to trim the stems, the very little tippy top of the stems off of them. And one more time, trim just the stem off, and you can see that the little seed pocket is not open, but if you do happen to open it, it's not that big of a deal. But I'm just keeping mine whole here. Next, I'm going to transfer them into a saucepan, and I'm adding 1/2 cup of a dry red wine, your choice, and 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, along with 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. I'm going to put my heat on high until it reaches a boil, and then I'm going to lower it to a simmer, and I'm going to leave this over here to cook and stir it every now and then. Don't forget about it. Next, we're going to mix 4 ounces of cream cheese with 4 ounces of goat cheese. These are both at room temperature right now, so they're going to blend together really easily. And I'm just going to use my hand mixer and mix them together until I get a somewhat creamy consistency. I'm not looking for them to be perfect right now because we are going to do a little bit more mixing as we add our ingredients. So just kind of look for them to be combined and a little bit creamy. So we're going to add our first ingredient, which is some honey, and a teeny little bit of salt is also in there. So what I'm adding here is 2 tablespoons of honey and 1/8 of a teaspoon of kosher salt. And again, scrape my bowl on the sides and on the bottom. This helps us ensure that we're not going to have any little chunkies in there. We want to have a nice smooth batter. Did I scrape my bowl before? I don't remember. You can scrape it before you add your honey too. Anyway, it's just important to make sure you're scraping here and there because you don't want to end up with a chunk of goat cheese in one tartlet and like a chunk of cream cheese in another tartlet, and it's just not a nice texture. We want a nice creamy texture for our end product. So now we're going to add in 2 eggs. And again, just use your hand mixer, mix this until it's nice and well combined, and I'm kind of doing this in real time for you so that you get an idea of how long I was mixing. And I'm only on low speed, but I have a pretty powerful hand mixer here, so you might need to have yours cranked up. Just depends on what you have. But once again, I'm going to scrape my bowl, and as you can see, I do have some little chunks of the goat cheese and of the cream cheese sticking to the sides and the bottom. That's why it's so important to scrape. I know I already said it, but I just really want you all to scrape your bowl. Don't forget to scrape your bowl. So we're going to give it one final mix here, get it nice and creamy this time, and I'm going on medium. And just trying to get a really nice little texture going for my tartlets. We want a really nice smooth batter. So I'm about there and done. So this is what mine looks like once it's all finished. And you can see that I do have a couple of teeny little chunks in there, about cottage cheese size. Don't worry about those because we don't want to overmix our batter either, because you'll end up with like a whippy, airy, fluffy tart, and we don't want that either. So I've moved this into my measuring cup so that it's easier to pour. And what I like to do is start by adding a decent amount of the filling into each of my tartlet shells, but I don't want to overfill them because I don't want to get down to my 24th one and not have enough. So just put a little bit into each one and then go back and fill the ones that look like they need a little more. We're going to bake these at 350 until the middle is just set. That means the middle should still have a little jiggle. Make sure you don't overbake them or they'll crack. So here is my beautiful fig creation that's happening over here. This is going to be our fig compote, and as you can see, my liquid has thickened up into a beautiful syrup and it tastes quite delicious. So I'm going to move it over to the food processor, and if you don't have a food processor, you can do this by hand. You're just going to have to do a little chopping of the figs and then put it back in the liquid and stir it. But if you do have a food processor, move it into your food processor. Just give it a couple of pulses. You don't want to puree it because you'll have like fig juice. This is what you should have. And I'm going to move this over to a cute little bowl for just a minute. You can serve it like this if you would like to. You see I have this beautiful texture. It's nice and thick. There are still chunks of fig in it. This is absolutely perfect and beautiful and just what I was looking to have. You can serve that compote on the side, or you can do what I like to do and spoon just a little bit on top of each one of your tartlets. And it also looks really pretty if you also spoon some around the plate like so. If you would like this recipe or any of my others, please check out my site, bestbitesforever.com. Thank you so much for watching, and happy cooking, everyone.
bestbitesforever.com